Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this evening's live stream. We do indeed have a special guest this evening, a new guest on the live stream. I'll introduce him in just a little while. A few short stories just to get us warmed up tonight. I've got my Christmas tree up there, which reminds me to announce the Christmas live stream. Sort of fun and games live stream will be 2 weeks tonight, 16th of December. So do tune in for that. It's normally a lot of fun. That will be in 2 weeks' time. Right, so something before I get the slides up. It's been quite interesting. The Scottish Conservatives. I mean, things really are falling to bits for the Scottish Conservatives. I don't know if you've been following this particularly closely. Adam Tomkin, who stood down at the last election, he was a Conservative MSP. He's revealed since that in the general election, he voted Labour. He said he voted Labour. Then we've got Jamie Green, who's in the Conservatives. He left and has joined the Lib Dems. Jeremy Balfour's left because he said the Conservatives have gone to sort of populist and right-wing. Maurice Golden, who is standing down at the next election. He wouldn't have got re-elected in any case, but he's standing down. But he's still a Conservative MSP. But he has been absolutely slating Russell Finlay and the current Conservative Party. So it's been really fascinating to see their true colours, actually. Because, I mean, the Conservative Party, I would say, in Scotland for a long time, have not been very conservative at all and have been pretty ineffectual in the Parliament. I mean, under Ruth Davidson, I mean, not a conservative bone in their body. But it just shows a lot of the people, particularly who came into the Parliament around that time, they really were in Ruth Davidson's image. And now that they've got no hope of getting re-elected, they're saying what they really think. And we're seeing that they really are not very conservative in their values. Now, fair enough, actually, for them to say, our only hope is to appear a bit more professional and temperate and responsible and reasonable than Reform. Okay, fair enough for the Conservatives to say that. And I would say Russell Finlay isn't doing that. He's just aping Reform. So fair enough to have something of a complaint there. But it really is interesting to see. So I think if the Conservatives, if you took all of them, the MSPs they got left, and said you have to choose, you have to choose to join the Lib Dems, or you have to choose to join Reform. You have to choose one. Which one would you choose? I think it would be a dead heat. It would be a dead heat. Very interesting what's going on with the Conservatives. But let's have a look. A few things that have been in the news, a few short stories to get us warmed up a bit. This was reported in the papers probably over a week ago now. Princess of Wales could not be more wrong about addiction. I feel sorry for the royal family because they want to get involved in issues that you would have hoped would be straightforward, like tackling drug addiction, helping drug addicts. I mean, probably many years ago, this would have been quite an uncontroversial area. But like so many other things, it's become politicized. And basically, in my humble opinion, the wrong view is that the thing you really need to tackle with drug addiction is stigma. I mean, it says that in the little caption there. If we can just get over the stigma of drug addiction, then everything will be fine. So it's not to do with people taking bad choices. It's not to do with helping people and motivating people to get off drugs because they're really bad for everyone. It's the stigma we need to tackle. The people who've got negative views about illegal drug use or drug addicts or whatever. Totally wrong-headed. But if you just compare that, so the real issue is stigma. If we could just deal with the stigma, then we'd be on top of the drugs issue. Well, really. So this was in the news just within a day or two of that. Paranoid drug user tried to murder 3 police officers with crossbow. Now, don't forget, everyone, the real issue with drugs is the stigma. If we could just destigmatize it, then we would all be fine. No police would be fired at with a crossbow if we could just tackle the stigma. I mean, it really is an upside-down way of looking at things. It's like a refusal to demand any sort of personal responsibility. It's all got to be society's fault. It can't be the fault of an individual or the responsibility of an individual. So, yeah, that issue is going to run and run. Now, here's an interesting one. Now, Craig, I've mentioned Craig Houston from time to time. Haven't seen Craig for a while. I think a lot of I probably agree with him on quite a lot of things. So you disagree on a few things. But he put this video out. It came up on my YouTube feed. I was quite intrigued. Humza Yousaf says the 9/11 attacks were not carried out by Muslims. And also that Humza Yousaf says that Muslims built the United States of America. I thought that's pretty, I mean, even by Humza Yousaf standards, I thought, did he really say that? Surely he didn't actually say that. That's too bananas to contemplate. So I watched the video to see these lines where he allegedly said the 9/11 attackers were not Muslims and Muslims built America. So let's go over to Humza and see the smoking gun or otherwise.
Many of us, when he articulated with emotion, powerful emotion, just how he felt 24 years on from those dreadful attacks on 9/11, and saying that Muslims continue to be targeted, abused, and vilified, all under the glare of suspicion for a crime that we did not commit. And I think that therein lies the first lesson for us. Be unapologetic about who you are. Be unapologetic about being Muslim. Be proud of your identity as an American Muslim. You see, Muslims are not being hosted here in America. You, the Muslim community, are building America.
Right, so is Craig Houston's charge right? Well, basically, no, it's not. It's not true. Humza Yousaf did not say it wasn't Muslims. He says we didn't do it. When he said we, he wasn't meaning we as the universal family of Muslims. He was meaning the people who get targeted and abused. Did he say that Muslims built America? No, he didn't. He said Muslims are building America. Now, this idea that people are building a nation, I mean, am I building Scotland? Did you feel like you're building Scotland? I'm not quite sure about that sort of language, but he didn't say that Muslims built America. So not true, not true. But listening to what Humza was saying there, I thought it was quite interesting because he put a video out within, I don't know, a few days ago in any case, that listed various inventions and was saying we invented them, inventions by Muslims. And he was saying we invented them. So, well, hang on a minute. You can't have it both ways. You can't say when some Muslims do a bad thing, oh, that's not us. That's not we. We didn't do that. But then when Muslims do good things, you could say, oh, that is us. We invented these things. So I think, yeah, Humza can't have it both ways there. He needs to make his mind up. And it's fascinating to see Humza's behavior since he left the parliament. I say totally obsessed with Islam and Palestine. And I think with Islam, I think that's where he finds an audience. That's where there's a group of people who want to welcome him and want to give him a platform. But it's not Muslims who actually believe the teachings of Islam, because Humza denies there's left, right, and center. It's Muslims who are just, I don't know, that sort of identity politics Muslims. So it's very, very interesting. Now, someone replied and said, well, that's a bit unfair. And what would I say as a Christian? Would I say Christians invented hospitals? I would say yes. Would I say we invented hospitals? No, I don't think I'd say that. If you want to say that, you've got to take the good with the bad. Okay, so I think Humza needs to decide which line he's taking. And my advice with him would be to take the line that you don't claim that everything any Muslim has ever done is something that we did. I think you'd be much better off avoiding that. Anyway, so I sprung to Humza Yousaf's defense against what I think was a false allegation, but he's still wrong about what he's saying there. But it's quite a thought that, wasn't it? This man was the first minister of Scotland. This man who is obsessed with Palestine and like Muslim identity politics was the first minister of Scotland. I find that quite worrying. Where was his heart then? I mean, is it just suddenly since he's left office that he's become obsessed with these other issues? Well, I suggest not. I suggest these were his priorities while he was First Minister of Scotland. And we really need to be very careful that we don't get another First Minister with the same priorities. That's not to say we never have a Muslim First Minister, but not one that's obsessed with Muslim identity politics like Humza Yousaf is. Right, do fire comments in. Good evening, Scotland Scorpion again. Right, round off. We've got police have to catch drug suppliers and judges give stiff jail sentences. Yeah, absolutely. Suppliers, but I think users as well. You just got to deal with it at every stage. Now, well, the American government, I mean, it's quite remarkable some of the things they're doing, but they designated NHS abortions as human rights violations last week. Quite remarkable. And who'd have thought we'd have something like that going on even a few years ago? But I mean, are they right? Well, yes, probably the human rights. I mean, who defines what's a human right? The official definitions say they don't cover the unborn. The people who interpret them make it clear they're not supposed to cover the unborn, but America's saying they think they do. So, yeah, that's good. Okay, all fine. But then I just noticed this comment under it on social media, which I thought I'd just point out. Quite instructive, I think. So this is a gentleman whose image there is a Reform logo. And that's what he's saying. What about women's human rights? I still believe that it's the woman's body and her choice. The world seems intent on removing women's rights, which have been hard fought for, and I will not be part of that. That's interesting. How many Reform supporters share that view? I would say probably most of them. Probably 60 or 70%. Because what every party will want to do is they'll want to present a side to everyone that's most appealing to those people. So there will be individuals within Reform who are pro-life, but this just was an example of one of their grassroots supporters, totally pro-choice. So people who are trying to kid themselves about Reform's position, this is why Reform is not a pro-life party. Well, there's two reasons. One reason is the leadership don't believe it. And the other reason is that their membership overall would not be remotely pro-life. So thanks, Will, for enlightening us with that comment. And it's time to bring in our special guest. So let's take that off for a minute. And let's welcome Greg DeBleek. Greg, welcome.
Good evening.
So where are you? I can't remember. You're somewhere out west, aren't you? Glasgow-ish. Yeah, no, you're near to
Ibrox. Ibrox Football Stadium is literally a stone's throw that way, and I have tried throwing some stones, but it doesn't quite reach. But yes, no, I'm in Ibrox and have lived here for the last 25 years for my sins.
Okay, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes,
well, I am the family party.
Yes, I'm a musician and I am a hymn writer. I write hymns and songs for the church, and I have been working in the music scene since about 2000. And I've been involved with the Scottish Family Party. I've been a member for several years now. I have spoken a few times at the Scottish Family Party conference, usually on subjects surrounding the ideas of communication and persuasion, purely because that's something that I'm interested in as a subject. I like using words as a hymn writer. I feel that communication is central to what I want to do and I want to get better at. And most recently, I spoke at the most recent party conference on the subject of Christian nationalism. So that's probably where most of your Scottish Family Party supporters will know me from.
Yeah. So Christian nationalism, we had a chat about that. Everyone within certain circles is talking about Christian nationalism. I think some people on the sort of secular progressive side of politics are saying it's a very bad thing coming. Some Christians are saying, no, well, we're not quite sure what it means, but if it means this, that sounds quite positive. Other Christians are saying they think it means something, and I might think, oh, well, I'm not so keen on that. So it's a big debate taking place at the moment. So tell us about your thoughts on it. How did you arrive at this issue, and where have you got to?
Well, one of the people that I've been very interested in hearing the thoughts on is a guy called Doug Wilson in the US, and he seems to be becoming quite prominent. Particularly, he has caught the interest of some of the national and mainstream media, like CNN did a piece on him, and New York Times interviewed him, and things like that. So he is a pastor up in Idaho, and he advocates for something akin to Christian nationalism, which is basically an acknowledgement that if you're going to govern your country by a certain set of standards, then Christianity and the scriptures offer the best objective moral standards by which we should govern a nation. And over in America, of course, those were the foundational principles for their constitution. And I believe most of the Western democracies have benefited from having Christianity as the foundational principle that guided so many of its founders. And I think it's only in the more recent years, maybe in the post-war era, that we have tried to sideline that and separate Christianity or religion and state as though those things can be separate. And I think that's kind of wrong. So yeah, I've been interested in that whole subject and addressing, I think, the challenges that Christians face when they are confronted with the idea of Christian nationalism. I know that there are a lot of articulate Christians who are very, very wary of it because of the associations that it brings up, whether it's with personalities. I mean, Doug Wilson himself is quite a controversial figure within the evangelical Christian scene. And obviously here in the UK, it's your people like Tommy Robinson with the Unite the Kingdom March and everything like that. There's a lot of people very uncomfortable with him, particularly with his reputation as it has been reported in the mainstream media over the years. People feel like we don't want anything to do with that. And there's a real discomfort with that. I think amongst evangelical voices who want to come across as moderate and who want to come across as winsome, they don't like the idea of Christian nationalism because there are so many negative associations with that, and it's used by the left as a pejorative term.
Yeah. Just say, everyone, do share this, whatever you're watching on. Is there a way of sharing so more people watch? I mean, do that. It was good to have more people watching. So, say Christian nationalism means lots of different things to different people. So, if your vision of Christian nationalism was enacted in Scotland and the UK, what would change?
Well, I think there would be. You could get down to the particulars about what would change, but I think fundamentally, some of the main things that would change would be how do we evaluate all of the decisions that get made in government? What are the standards by which we are going to evaluate whether something is good or bad? And a Christian nationalist's approach tends to say, well, the standard by which we are going to judge whether this is good or bad is the standard which has been given to us in the scriptures. So obviously that will have clear, you will have, clear guidance on issues such as marriage or abortion, for example. These are issues which are very clear cut in scripture. Marriage is between a man and a woman, and abortion, human beings are made in the image of God and we shouldn't kill them, these kind of things. So those would be kind of big issues that are reflected in a kind of Christian nation, but it's not a coercive thing either.
So if you imagine the Scottish Parliament, how do these values get in there? Because I mean, whoever gets elected, like if a government like the SNP gets elected, then it's not going to happen. So you're not suggesting there be some higher authority than the democratically elected politicians. You would just hope that the elected politicians and their parties operated according to Christian principles.
Yes, exactly. And acknowledging that the principles by which we are guided are principles that we have inherited. They're not principles. We don't give people rights. For example, government does not give people rights. People have rights which are given by God, and the role of government is just to recognize those rights. So a Christian nation would affirm those kind of doctrines. But I don't think we are anything near a Christian nation. I think right now we need to be advocating for this as an ideology that has worked in the past, albeit with flaws that were down to the failures in human beings. But it's an ideology that we have rejected almost wholesale, and we are reaping the whirlwind as a result of that.
Yeah. The family party's approach is that not everyone in the family party is a Christian. Now we've got Muslims and atheists and all sorts. And probably most of the people in the family party are Christians. Our line is, if you read our policy booklet, there won't be anything specifically Christian. If I'm asked about a policy, I'll just explain it and what it's for. But on the other hand, we are also happy to talk about Christian foundations of it. So it's not some sort of taboo, some sort of secret. We're very happy to talk about that. But we're also happy to present things without reference to that, just in terms of why it's going to work. To try and, I think in politics, it shouldn't just go in and say, well, it's because we're Christians and this is what we believe, so this is what we want. It should always be, we're Christians, this is what we believe, and we think this is going to be best for everyone because. So I think that's the line.
Yes, yes, a fundamental motivator for everything that I think the Scottish Family Party does is desiring the best for every single person within your nation, within the purview of your government. Yeah. You want the best for people. And I think that's quite a hard thing to actually communicate to people who are so wary about anything that is to do with Christianity, anything that's to do with, even the right wing, things that many people have rejected as, conceptually. I think that, we have to persuade people that we actually have their best interests at heart, and we want to actually show them how these things are better for them. Yeah,
absolutely. Right, I think this is an example, in my opinion, of getting this totally wrong. Kemi Badenoch, responding to the budget. She didn't say spending on welfare is unchristian. That's a misrepresentation. She said that she thought Labour was spending too much on welfare. It was too lax. I made a quick video about it saying, if you look at Christian teaching on welfare, number one, if you don't work, you don't eat. You have to work if you can. Number two, people who can't provide for themselves need a system to help them. And number three, total honesty, no playing the system, no cheating, and taking what you're not entitled to. So they're the three principles. So Kemi Badenoch suggested that Labour their policies were unchristian. I guess because they were giving money to people who could work if they were able to work, or to people who were being dishonest and playing the system. So it was potentially a sensible thing to say, but it's inevitable what's going to happen with this. But in that situation, what's going to happen inevitably, the BBC, etc., are going to find a very left-wing, liberally minded Christian off their list of contacts that they keep and invite them on to say, oh, no, she's totally wrong. So I'm not sure she gained anything by that. I mean, she says herself she's not a Christian. I mean, does she think saying this is going to particularly appeal to Christians? I don't think it will. She's just opening herself up for an easy, open goal for someone to attack it. I just don't see the point of her saying that. But it's part of the general trend of politicians all just desperate to talk about Christianity. I've never known anything like it. They just can't. They're falling over themselves to talk Christian.
It's quite unusual, isn't it? I haven't seen anything like that in the last 20 or 30 years, at least. Yeah. In terms of how popular Christianity has become. But I do believe that it is a kind of nominal Christianity. It's a Christianity that is tied to our heritage and identity, rather than necessarily a Christianity that is fully scriptural. So you can advocate for a whole variety of things and draw some kind of tenuous connection to Christianity. And I think really the reason for it is people are just looking for voting blocks. And in a culture now that is becoming so fragmented in terms of communities, politicians are extremely keen to find united voting blocks.
Did you think it would work? I mean, do you think did you achieve anything whatsoever by saying that? I just don't understand.
Well, yes, I don't know. I don't know what kind of Christians are going to kind of think, oh, she mentioned Christianity, I'll vote for her. Yes. But
I mean, it's so shallow. If someone were to come out and say, right, I've looked at the Catechism of the Catholic Church, this is what it says, and that's in line with our policies, I would say, okay, well, that's going to be it's quite difficult to respond to, because if you've done your research, that's true, and that's going to appeal to Catholics, because they'll say, yeah, that is what we believe. And I think, okay, fair enough, reasonable pitch. But it just seems so shallow. It just, like you say, just assuming that just mentioning the words somehow is going to work. But yeah, a total own goal in my point of view. But let's have a look what else we've got. Right, let's leave that one for now. But this was again, like the letters pages in newspapers are filling up with Christian talk again. Back in, I don't know, 15 years ago, they were full of religion and Richard Dawkins, New Atheist, all this sort of thing, like religion and anti-religious views. That was a big discussion point. But that's sort of faded away. It went quiet for a while. But now it's back with Christianity and effect on the nation is the topic people are talking about. So I had this published in the Herald a couple of days ago. This is a different Doug Wilson than the one you were talking about. This is some bloke who wrote to the Herald. So Doug Wilson said, Christianity's principle of exclusive salvation has caused untold suffering. I mean, what a bizarre thing to say. So I said, I'm not sure how. Message of God's free offer of grace and forgiveness doesn't sound sinister to me. The offer is made to all equally. Those who accept it do so with joy and gratitude. Those who don't are making a serious mistake in my view, but I don't see how the church can be blamed for causing untold suffering among those who reject its message. That's like blaming breweries for making teetotalers miserable. I have to say I quite like that line. But this is the bit I wanted to talk about. Mr. Wilson is right to point out the common moral tuitions across cultures, but it doesn't follow that belief in God is superfluous. So we tried to say, if you look at people around the world, they have a core of common moral intuitions, which just shows it's built into us. And you don't need religion to inform us about morality. Now, I would say one of the reasons you do is this core built-in morality is too narrow. I didn't respond to that point. I said there's two aspects to morality: the principles by which we should live and the reason we should live by them. The only ultimate answer to the second point is that a transcendent being is the ultimate source of goodness and that we're obliged by this being to act accordingly. If moral principles become seen as mere expressions of taste, fashion, genes, theory, or empathy, we have no solid reason to follow them. A nation lacking a shared moral vision collapses into dysfunction. So then the other aspect there is that in terms of Christianity or any religion, I suppose, and morality, it's partly that you can derive the actual moral teachings from it, but also it gives a motivation to actually take it seriously and to do it, which I think is often the bigger issue with morality. I think probably most of us would say that. I mean, our big challenge isn't working out what's right and wrong. The bigger challenge is actually doing it. And I think that's quite universal. And I think if moral values are not seen as having any foundation, or if people can't really explain why you really ought to do this, you don't have it really is what you have to do. If there's not that shared understanding, then I think it's inevitable that however noble the beliefs are, people are not going to live by them. And I think we get that with the standard of honesty in society. It's just generally taken for granted that you can tell lies. That's sort of okay.
And
Yes,
I do wonder if the notion that this guy who wrote into the paper is alluding to in terms of the untold suffering, I wonder if that's coming from the same psychological space as the story about the Princess of Wales that you were talking about, and the biggest problem with drug addiction is the stigma associated with it.
Yeah.
I think when people talk about the offense of the gospel being that we are sinners and we actually need to, we're on the wrong path and we need to turn and go in the right direction. You know, we're on the path away from God and we need to turn towards God, which is essentially the message at the heart of Christianity, and God has made that possible for us. The offense of that is that there is something that's wrong with me and there's something that's wrong with you. And if you are in that modern therapeutic mindset that believes that the only thing we need is positive affirmation in order to achieve our dreams, then you will make decisions in your relationships and in your public policy, if you're in that line of work, that do not address the fundamental problem, is that you have done something wrong, and you need to stop doing the thing that's wrong and you need to start doing the thing that's right, whether that's in the realm of drug addiction or any other kind of moral realm at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really liked what you said in your conference speech. It was a point I don't think I'd heard before. It was either in politics, if as you're explaining, the fundamental of being a Christian is you recognize that you're not very good, and you need, you sort of need help there. You recognize that you're starting from a point and continue to be very imperfect, to say the least. So the pressure's off of trying to prove that you're a good person, because you know sort of you're not, and that's okay. Whereas people coming from another perspective, with other values coming into politics, you're saying maybe that they feel pressure that they do have to persuade people that they're a good person. So they're more keen to be appearing to be good, to be given the impression of being good. Whereas if the impression's not important to you, because you're not trying to persuade people you're good, because you don't think you are particularly, then you can maybe focus more directly on what's actually going to do good, rather than what appears good. I thought that was a good point. I hadn't heard that one before.
Yes.
Was that original to you? Was that a Greg DeBleek original, or was that someone else?
Oh, of course, yeah. No, I think maybe I was thinking about this idea of reputation is the shadow, but character is the thing itself. And
that's even more profound.
Many people are concerned about it appearing good, but if a Christian has taken Scripture seriously, then he's not bothered about appearing good. He wants to be good. As a result, yes. So I think that's a positive. So if
reputation is the shadow, character is the
thing itself,
the object. Yes. Okay, right. Excellent.
I'm probably paraphrasing somebody who said it a lot better than I did, but you get the idea.
Claim it. We haven't heard of it, Stephen.
That's right.
Right. This yet another thing in the media. Kevin McKenna, writing in the Scotsman. Kevin's a Catholic. I'm not sure. Yeah. So he said this. So he said on a few. He's talking about the Catholic bishops, and he got some quite a harsh thing to say. He said, on the few occasions these bishops emerge from their palaces and remove their invisibility cloaks, it's usually to take canapes at Holyrood with characters who mock the church the rest of the year. Now, I'm not wanting to pass any judgment on the Catholic bishops. I don't know much about them. I know certainly there's one of them that I know does speak out quite a lot on these issues. But I would say his point there is quite universalizable. I think it applies across denominations, that there tends to be a culture that for various reasons now isn't the time to be speaking out about moral issues. for various reasons. Would you agree with that, Greg? Do you feel that that's a dominant culture?
Well, yes, I
across a lot of
believe
churches?
I believe it's the challenge. I believe it's the challenge for everyone. Now is always the time to speak out, because tomorrow you might be dead, and we only have a short period of time in which to actually influence things by our ideas and actions. And I believe it's a huge challenge to leaders of churches to be the people who are speaking out, because I think it can be a real challenge, particularly when you have got to a certain standing within the church, and you have more to lose within your kind of personal life, whether it's a position or your pay or prestige or any of these things. And all of these things can very easily be used to exercise control over leaders as they become more prominent, in order to keep them on the leash, so to speak. I think that is a constant challenge. I think the challenge increases as the standing increases, and it's a great leader who can speak the truth, even when they have a lot riding on it, when they have a lot to lose. So I think rather than criticizing the ones that we have who have not spoken out, I think we should also be encouraging those who are in leadership within within churches to take some of these issues and actually speak on them and help people understand the ideas that are facing our nation.
Yeah. I think the thing about canopies in the Parliament, I mean, I've thought about that, not with the Catholic bishop, but just as a general issue. I mean, there's no such thing as free canopies. That's what I say. But the reason you're invited out for canopies is it's part of a strategy to keep you on side. And I'm sure that they will explicitly think to themselves, they will think, right, these are people who could really turn on us because we're making decisions that are totally opposed to what they believe. So we want to do everything we can to try to keep them on side. We're not going to succeed. I mean, they are going to disagree with us, but let's do everything we can just so that they tone it down. Yes.
And when you've had your picture taken next to somebody at a cocktail party or whatever, if the Epstein lists have taught us anything, is there is a price to pay for some of that if you're not careful about who you fraternize with. So I think church leaders particularly have to work hard to be above reproach in that respect, and not pay much respect to the ruling elites and being brought, used for their kind of purposes.
Yeah, I think just the fact of meeting someone in person and passing the salt over the dinner table or whatever, just general chat, it does form some sort of bond, and it makes you'd be that more reluctant to actually be strident in criticizing them. But I think that's just human nature. It's a very important part of human nature. I think if it's someone that you've never met and you're just judging them by their actions on some point, then it's quite easy just to let fly at them. If it's someone you've met a few times and they seem quite interested in you and concerned about what's going on or whatever, then you'd be less inclined to do it. So
that's why Twitter is such a horrible place, and Facebook tends to be a bit nicer.
Yeah,
because Facebook is based around these are your friends, and you add your friends and you have your friends community. But Twitter is it's an ideas place, so you can just attack people. Yes, but I think we all have to be agreeable in these kind of relationships, don't we? And the challenge is to not let that overtake your principles.
And I think in terms of that, speaking out about these issues, there's all sorts of reasons people give. It'll offend people. They won't come to the carol service if you say about these things. It'll spoil our good relationship with the local politicians. It'll get reported badly in the media. But I'm thinking it's totally the opposite. People are crying out for something solid to build their life on.
Truth. That's what truth is, what they need. And I think, yes, if you have here again, talking about Christian nationalism and talking about a principle of Christian nationalism, I believe that the idea of we can do so much good by simply speaking the truth. And obviously, Christians are told to speak the truth in love, and understanding that we're not using the truth as a bludgeon to attack people, but we're using the truth because the truth shall set you free. That's what we believe as Christians. And we just want to, every situation is improved when the truth is spoken, I believe.
Yeah. In fact, actually, now you mentioned Tommy Robinson earlier on. Tommy Robinson, I'll show you this. It's quite interesting. And the reason I want to talk about this is, Tommy Robinson is advertising like a Christmas carol event, religious Christian event, outdoors in London on Saturday. That's good, yeah. Well, a couple of weeks. And this is probably going to be the biggest Christian event in Britain this year. Now, you may debate whether it's a Christian event or not. We'll come to that later. But it will be the biggest gathering of carol singing and Bible readings and Christmas story, whatever, anywhere in Britain. So I think we need to take notice of it. So this is just the advert for it. Putting Christ back into Christmas. Join believers from across the nation in central London, gathered to celebrate the true meaning of Christmas, the joyful celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. But at a time when the message of Christ can feel forgotten or overshadowed, Unite the Kingdom is calling Christians together to stand boldly and lovingly for the heart of our faith. Christ is Christmas. What to expect? Right, here we go. Bible readings and reflections. Priests, pastors, ministers, and a bishop will lead us through the powerful story of Christ's birth and the hope it brings. Live music and worship. Enjoy uplifting worship from a dynamic gospel band alongside breathtaking performances from opera singers. Testimonies of transformation. Hear moving personal stories from Christians sharing how their lives were changed by their journey to Jesus Christ. A revival begins. The event marks the beginning of a new Christian revival in the UK, a moment to reclaim and celebrate our heritage, culture, and Christian identity. Right, I changed gear a little bit for that bit. Then it says the event is not about politics, not about immigration, not about Islam or any other group. It's about Jesus Christ fully and completely. So if you feel that's, so just asking for donations. So what are your thoughts? I'll tell you mine in a minute. Do you want to go first, Greg? What do you think?
Well, I think anytime Christians gather under the authority of Scripture and when they affirm truth together, I think that is a good thing. I think many people will be worried that this is people recruiting Jesus Christ for a political cause. They will see it as uniting people in a group over here and then attaching them to a political cause or trying to attach them to a political cause. And they will be worried about that, particularly those people who regard politics and government as the supreme authority in things. But I do think that if there is a proclamation of truth there, I think I would much rather something like this is happening than any other of the secular nonsense that happens around Christmas. So I think, go for it and sing loud.
Yeah, my take, I think, is what I'm encouraged by is it really does seem a genuine effort to say, look, this is not about politics. It doesn't quite manage it because it starts talking about heritage, culture, Christian identity. But I think at the very least, it seems to me like there are real Christians involved in this and behind it. So my guess is that around Tommy Robinson, there are some Christians who know him and are no doubt trying to explain the Christian faith to him. And he wants to know about that. He's interested. And they've had a lot of influence over this event. So I think a lot in this event, I think, will be really good. That's not to say there might be some absolute clangers in there as well, but I think a lot in there will be very, very good. And it's the
I
sort of
can
thing,
fully anticipate that, and it'll be kind of similar, I think, in tenor to the Charlie Kirk memorial service, which was
that,
remarkably explicit in its Christianity, and particularly in the ways in which Christianity was articulated by some of the highest level people, like the Secretary of State and things like that. You know, that was quite unusual, quite unusual.
And people say that was the biggest audience ever to a presentation of the Christian message. And I've heard a few stories. I can't remember how many now, but I'm talking maybe 4 or 5 stories in Edinburgh of people in church when they say someone's just turned up to church saying either they became a Christian watching Charlie Kirk's memorial, or they watched it and they became interested or whatever. So it really has influenced people on a massive scale around the world. And I think this could have the same effect. Now, even, and again, I think a lot of Christians with Charlie Kirk, they'd be very uncomfortable with him because some of his political views, I would say they're more uncomfortable than they need to be.
Agreed.
But you've just got to see the fruits of it. I think the same could happen with this. Now, we'll come on to Tommy Robinson maybe individually in a minute. But no matter what motivation, and no matter how mixed up things might be behind the scenes with this, I think that this will be a positive thing. Partly because there will be people involved in it who've taken the step to think, okay, this is my calling to get involved in this movement. They'll probably get attacked for it from some other Christians, but they feel that that's where they can preach, minister, whatever you want to call it. And I think they're absolutely right. And I think they'll have a fantastic opportunity there. And I think a lot of people will hear the Christmas message. I mean, they're reading from the Bible. I mean, it's just inevitable that a lot of people there, I mean, who knows how many people there? It's going to be tens of thousands, I would imagine.
Yes.
They'll be hearing this, and it will go around social media.
Yes. And I think always the challenge when it's the challenge in every church service and every carol service, when you read the Bible, are you actually communicating the Bible? Are you actually, is what is coming out of the speaker's mouth, is it getting into the hearts of the people who are listening? That's always the real challenge of communication. That's one of the challenges that I always find as a hymn writer. I'm always trying to use music to help people to engage with the fullness of a particular truth and not just have it go in one ear and out the other kind of thing. And I think that's always a challenge. But when they're talking about revival, and okay, it might be a little bit kind of ambitious to say this is the start of a revival. I think there is a revival of sorts happening in the world, in the UK particular as well. And I think the thing about revival is it's going to be messy, and it's going to upset the people who only want revival on their terms. They want revival according to their denomination and their own particular manner of worship. You know, if they don't see liturgy, for example, they're not going to regard it as revival. Or if they don't see people speaking in tongues, they're not going to regard it as revival and things. And I just think, well, you know, you just have to let the truth be spoken and let
I mean, from
God
what I'm hearing is people are pitching up at all sorts of churches in this period.
Yes.
Right. Thanks for the comment here. Tommy Robinson became a Christian while in prison. That's certainly what is reported. So I think Tommy Robinson is on some sort of journey in that regard. If we just put this on though, just to show, I mean, with Tommy Robinson, I still think like his way of speaking, he's inflammatory and gratuitously offensive, and it's it's pretty terrible. If someone say no, is that stirring up hatred? I mean, he's been calling like Muslims cavemen, 7th century cavemen, etc. So it is inflammatory. It is irresponsible. Is it? I mean, probably stirring up hatred is the right word to use. Now, some of that you think, well, that's his background, that's the way he speaks. So when I hear he's become a Christian, I certainly don't think, well, that can't be true, because look at the way he speaks. I think, well, great. Let's hope in the years to come that he'll grow as a Christian, as we all do, and as we all have, and we'll all keep doing. So I certainly don't want to write him off. I want to give him every encouragement. I'm not going to be skeptical about him saying he's become a Christian. But,
neither will you invite him to come and pastor your church. I mean, anyone who, you can respect somebody for their political courage. You can respect them for their boldness, but you can also acknowledge that they have rough edges. You can acknowledge that they make mistakes, and young Christians are notorious for having poor theology, and their earnestness and their desire to receive, and they still need to learn discernment. And what Mary says, we're all works in progress. That's why we pray for each other. Amen to that. And certainly we need that support.
Yeah. So I think it's one to but overall encouraging development. Well, very much so. If you think back a few years again, if you think about sort of Tommy Robinson's section of the political spectrum, if you like, I mean, how much Christian influence appeared to be present in that? I mean, basically none. It wasn't really that. Whereas now it's something is really happening. So we've got Tommy Robinson having a massive Christian celebration of Christ at Christmas. Kemi Badenoch Reformer talking about Christian values left, right, and centre. I mean, it's just, yeah.
It'll be Patrick Harvey next.
I was thinking that earlier on. Not a glimmer of it from the Greens. Not a thing. Keir Starmer's tried it a bit, which again is, you're pretty bold if you go around saying I am an atheist and then trying to talk about Christian values. I mean, you really are going out on a limb, but he has a try.
Yep. Right. Well, he's welcome at church anytime.
Yeah. Right. Let's. We've just got a few minutes left. Let's go to another topic. I've got lots of them. Let's get the slides back on. No, that's not the slides. This is the slides. Right. We'll leave that section of the book. This has been a big UK-wide news story. Almost 1 in 3 children in Glasgow doesn't speak English as their first language.
That's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, what does that do to educational standards? That's really, really difficult for the teacher. I've had classes with boys then whose English wasn't very good, but the school I taught in, you basically you could get around the problem by having a lot of money to spend. You get really good English as a second language support and lessons, really intensive, and things get sorted out quite quickly. But it is a problem in your class. I mean, no one can suggest that diversity of languages in your lesson is a strength.
Definitely not. Definitely not. And interestingly, this was one of the aspects of Christian nationalism that I was talking about. When you think about nationalism as an idea, you are looking at the key factors that unite people, one of them being place, one of them being language, shared history, shared culture and morality. So we've talked a lot about morality and culture to a degree, but language is a critical thing. If you encounter somebody in the street and you don't have a fundamental way of communicating with them, then that is a real impediment to trust. And trust is what nations are built on. Trust is what relationships require before they can progress. If you can't trust the person next to you because you don't know what language they speak, you aren't able to pick up as many of the indications that person isn't an enemy, that person isn't a threat to you. And they don't have that for you either. So it's a terrible situation.
It's just frustrating as well, because if you want to communicate something and you can't, I mean, the temptation is you just get a bit annoyed But it's like for people who are deaf, people very sorry for people who are deaf, because the temptation is for people just to get annoyed with you
Yes.
because you can't hear them.
Yes.
Um,
I can tell you a story about that. When I was in the gym, I was running in a treadmill in the gym, and I was the only guy in there. And one of the members of staff came in, and I turned off the TV, which had the radio playing, because I didn't want to listen to it. I was listening to my own thing. And this guy came in, member of staff, and switched the TV back on. And I said to him, mate, I don't need that on. You can leave that off. And he just kept turning it up and turning it up. And I said, mate, and he didn't look at me at all. And I started to get really angry at him, because this was really offensive. Of course, the guy was deaf, and I felt terrible afterwards. But it is interesting that, just as an illustration of how when you don't have that clear communication, it can be very easy to misunderstand people. So it's a real problem.
I'll go into a bit more about Glasgow in a minute. I think that photograph there, you often see photographs of kids in really scruffy, rundown areas. I think it's supposed to show kids living in poverty, and obviously you feel sorry for them.
I think that's out the back door here.
But the one thing I do think as well, though, is kids could be as happy as Larry playing anywhere. They couldn't care less if there's a burnt out house at the end of the street. If they've got some mates to play with, they'll be just fine. That's not to say all the other things don't matter, but right. So this is Glasgow statistics. Asylum seekers per 10,000 of population. So Edinburgh over on the right there, Glasgow on the left. So Glasgow just got a massive dose of asylum seekers, and it's mainly because of the council, the Scottish government and the council's policy of just offering housing to anyone who comes along. It's a single male asylum seeker, you can get an individual flat in Glasgow. So it must be costing a fortune, and it's politically driven. It's Glasgow Council, hyper left wing, wanted to show how virtuous they are by everyone's welcome, and it's starting to create tensions, I would say.
Yeah. Glasgow's not in a great way. Glasgow's not in a great way at all as a city. It's really going downhill in the last 10, 15 years.
And the other thing, look, Glasgow's population, as far as I'm aware, is going down. So despite this very significant influx, its population is still going down. So you really are so if you're running the council, you've really got a major problem there. Because population decline is big trouble as well. Was there another one on that topic? No. Well, we've got 2 minutes to go. Let's to finish off. Neil Oliver. Right. The reason I put this up is I think this is an example of someone just going totally over the top and losing touch with reality. But let's see what you think. The government wants you fat, sick, and idle as far as you can, and endeavour to be light, well by your own efforts, and productive. Right. The last bit's okay. The government wants you fat, sick, and idle. I just think the government wants you fat. That's not true. I think the government makes a significant effort to try and help people to live healthy lifestyles and to avoid obesity. They may not be very effective, these schemes, but the government doesn't want people to be fat. What's he thinking, Greg?
That's silly rhetoric. Yeah, don't think much of that.
No, the government wants you to be sick. Now, again, I think there's a significant number of people who have these sort of views that the government's up to something. It wants to keep people ill, then it keeps you buying drugs and they're making money out of it or something. But no. The government wants you to be idle. No, I think the government might not care enough if people are idle. Maybe not
Yes, the thing is, he's making out like it's a conspiracy, but it's not. It's just the result of foolish policies. It's the result of foolish policies. They might want you to be idle and inoffensive and easy to control. We can understand that, but yes, I think there's a lot of bravado and rhetoric and that. Yes, I don't think it's genuine.
I think it's sort of a statement that doesn't translate into anything sensible. that's what the thing that turns people off politics rather than helps people to get involved. Right, last thing to mention. Friday evening this week, we're having a pro-life vigil in Bristow Square in Edinburgh, 8 till 9 p.m. Part of the reason we're having it there is the Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is allegedly a vigil remembering transgender people who've been murdered, but actually none have been murdered in Scotland, or virtually none in the UK. So we're having a vigil in the same place. So do come and join us. We'll take our 19,000 lights out. So we'll see. We might have some speeches, we might not. There might be some sort of counter-protest. We'll see. We'll go and get a drink in a local hotel or somewhere afterwards. But do join us if you can. The weather forecast looking okay. 8 till 9 Bristow Square in Edinburgh, Friday night this week. Right, Greg, have you enjoyed your debut on the live stream?
I mean, I've certainly enjoyed it. I hope anybody who's watching has as well. Hope I've made sense at least.
That's been great. I really appreciate it. You coming on, sharing your thoughts. Thanks for your comments, everyone, as well. We've got another special guest coming on next week. We're going to talk about bullying in various contexts. And then the week after, it's Christmas special. So we'll have to get our silly hats out ready for that. So, right, good night, everyone, and see you next week.